In the previous lecture, we have studied about navigation bars. In the navigation bars, we have come across two different properties which we haven't dealt with. One was float and one was overflow. Okay, so these two properties we haven't read. Okay, so in this lecture, we'll be talking about our float property. Okay, so we'll give this title float and overflow. Okay, now for understanding float property, we will write, suppose we'll give a paragraph in which we'll add an image. Okay, suppose any image, book1.jpg. Okay, and here I will write any paragraph. Okay, suppose we'll save it and we'll refresh it. Okay, so I will reduce the width here. We'll give the width as 100 pixel and height as 100 pixel. Okay, let's refresh it. See, now our width and height is 100 pixel. Okay, notice one thing. When we have given the image and paragraph, this line, this text in the same paragraph, this text is not starting from here, it is starting from here. So why it is coming like this? Okay, so here for correcting this, we have to apply this float, we have to apply the float property onto this image. Okay, suppose we want to we want to float this image to left, and this text will be, this text, whole text will go up. Here it is considered as 1. Okay, when we'll apply the float property to this image, then you'll see the change. Okay, so we'll do our internal styling. We'll apply the float property to our image. Okay, so we have applied float left, means the image will float onto the left. Suppose we refresh it, see, our image has floated to the left, and now our text is next to this image. Okay, you can also float it to right, you can also float the image to right. Okay, suppose we'll refresh it, see, now our image is on right side. Okay, it's here, it is floating, you can't see like this. Okay, I will give you an example in few seconds. Okay, suppose we can also give a float property as none. Okay, we can also replace the float property. If we replace the property, it will be changed to the default one. Okay, this float none property is the default state. Okay, its initial state. Okay, so how you are not able to see how it is floating? Okay, so I will take one example. Suppose I will comment out these. Suppose we'll take a div here and write anything. First div, here we'll write second div. Okay, suppose here we'll give a class as first, and here we'll give a class as second. Okay, so now we'll style it. Okay, suppose we'll, here we'll style. The first will add suppose a border. Okay, suppose I will add a solid means it is solid black. We'll give a border of, I'm just doing for your understanding, okay, so you can understand clearly. Suppose we are giving a border of 1 pixel solid red. Now we'll float the upper div to left. Okay. Suppose we float the upper div to left. Now we'll save the page. Okay. Then we'll refresh it. See, here we have floated left, or we have floated the first div to our left. Okay. See, we have floated the first div to left. Okay, so it is floating on this first div is floating on the second div. Okay, so here you can understand it is floating on the second div. See, the it is overlapping, first div and second div is overlapping. Okay, so in order to clear these spaces, in order to like neglect these spaces, you have to use a clear property. Okay, in order to we don't want them to float. Okay, so we'll use a clear property. Suppose we are giving a float left to the first div, so you have to give a clear left to the second div, so it can clear all the spaces on the left side. Okay, see, it clears the spaces onto the left side. Okay, all the spaces onto the left side. So what this property does, it clears all the spaces onto the left side. You can also mention right. Okay, it can be clear both. Okay, by applying clear both, it will clear both the spaces, both left and right spaces. Okay, suppose here will float right, and here will clear. Suppose we will not do right. Okay, first will will float right to our first div. Okay, will float the right, float the div to right. Okay, now we want to clear this space. Okay, this floating space we want to clear. So this div will, second div will clear the right space. Okay, so we'll apply the clear property on our second div. Okay, so we'll here apply the right property, clear right property, and we'll refresh it. See, now our right space is cleared. Okay, so it is coming on a second line. Okay, so you can also apply clear both. Now it will not be applicable. This means that it will clear both the spaces, both the left and right spaces. Okay, suppose give give another div. I will float. So we have added another div. Suppose let's add a class. Any class name you can give according. Here I am just giving a random name. Okay, we'll target it and we'll float into left. Okay, one is first div is our floated right, and we'll float it to left. Okay, suppose we'll give a border for distinction. Okay, so we can understand. Okay, suppose we save it and we'll refresh it. Just a minute. Okay. Here I have done a clear both. Okay. See, this div is also overflowing. Okay. This div is also overflowing. Okay. So in order to clear the spaces from both sides, we use a clear both. We'll use a clear property and we'll use the value as both. Okay. When we apply the both property, see both the left and right spaces are now cleared. Okay. So when you use this float property, always keep in mind, if you want to clear the spaces, like the floating spaces, if you want to clear it, you can clear it by this property, clear property. Okay. So you can float the image or any text or any element, you can float it to left or right. Okay. And you can clear the spaces with the help of this property. Okay. Suppose I will give you one more example. Okay. Suppose here we'll take another div, we'll take an image, this not images, take this. Okay. Now we'll give a paragraph. Any, okay. Let's save it. Suppose we'll comment this out. Okay. Now you can see I've applied a inserted an image and a paragraph in a particular div. Okay. Now we'll save it and see what will be the result. Suppose we'll here, we'll give the width and same height. Here we can give the same width and height. Okay. So suppose we'll give, suppose here we'll give give any name. Okay. Suppose I will give a clear. Okay. So I will add a border to it. Okay. 1 pixel solid red. Okay. Solid red. Okay, I have applied a border to this div. Okay. Now you can see I've applied the border to this div. Okay. And we'll here we'll float the image to left. Okay. So suppose we'll float the image to left. Okay. We'll float the image, this image to the left. Now we'll save it and we'll refresh it. See, now our image is overflowing from this particular width, from this particular height. Okay, from this particular border. Okay, so this image is not adjusted in this particular border, in this particular space. So here the image size is bigger than this paragraph. Suppose we will add one more paragraph in here. We have added another paragraph to this div. Okay, suppose we will refresh it. Now it is adjusted in this particular border, in this particular div. Okay, but when this image is greater than this space, the text space. If we want to adjust, suppose we'll comment this out here. Okay, we'll remove this, and now here you can see this image size is greater than this div size. Okay, so in order to adjust this image in this particular border, we have to apply a particular property. That is, suppose we'll apply this overflow property into this clear class. Okay, suppose we'll apply this overflow auto in our clear class. Okay, so now see the change. Okay, when we refresh it, see it adjusts the size to that space. Okay, the image adjusts the size and fits into this border. Okay, means what does overflow auto does that it like adjusts the size that is overflowing. Okay, it adjusts the size that is overflowing. Okay, that this overflow property does. Now we can clear the spaces when there is a float left or float property is applied. We know how to clear the spaces onto the both sides. Like we can also clear the spaces of the left side, and we can also clear the spaces of the right side. Okay, we can also we can remove the overflowing of the element. We can also remove the overflowing of the element by using overflow auto property. Okay, so there is one more method. Okay, like alternative of this overflow auto, and it is a good practice to apply this upcoming method. Okay, we'll comment this out and we'll apply it to our clear class, and we'll apply a pseudo selector, that is after. Okay, we'll apply this pseudo selector in clear. Okay, and we'll write some styling. Okay, first we'll give content as blank. Okay, then we'll clear both the sides, then we'll display it as table. Okay, so these three properties are replacing this one. Okay, in some of the cases when you will when there will be more elements floated. Okay, this overflow property will sometime not work. Okay, this is a good practice to use these properties. Okay, you will apply, suppose I will change the name to clear your understanding, like your misunderstanding. Okay, like we'll change it to main. Here we'll also change it to main. Okay, now we have applied this property. Okay, we have applied this property replacing this overflow property. Okay, so now we'll save it and we'll refresh the page. Okay, suppose here we haven't given our here we have to change our main. Okay, now you'll see now it adjusts our spaces. Okay, when we are using this overflow property, the same layout is coming, and now when we apply this property, then also our layout is same. The overflowing is adjusted into this border. Okay, so always when you are building real life projects, okay, so always use these three properties and use this pseudo selector when you are using float property. Okay, when you are floating many things inside a div, So always use this pseudo selector and apply these properties. What it does, like here the content is like blank. Suppose we'll add something. Okay, suppose we'll add something here and let's refresh it. See, that content is added to our after means that it will be placed after the main. Okay, means after the div. Okay, so it is placed after the div. And here clear means clear both means it will remove the spaces, both the spaces, the floating spaces. It will remove all the floating spaces on both sides. Okay, and here display table, what it does, like it displays it as a table. So you have to keep these three properties in your mind when you are using float property. Okay, when you are putting like 2 to 3 elements in your when you are floating 2 to 3 elements inside a div, always give this after pseudo selector. Okay, and apply these properties. Okay, so here we have studied about clear property and our float property, and we have learned about overflow auto. Okay, overflow property. So we only knew about auto value of overflow. Okay, there are more values of overflow property. Like suppose let's comment all these. Okay, for now also comment these out and let's comment these out. Okay, suppose we'll write a div and we'll write any text. Okay, we'll give a name of like suppose I'll give a main. Okay, so I've given a class as main. Okay, so suppose we'll give target the main class. Okay, we'll add a border pixel solid that any color you can give. Suppose we'll add a width of 50 pixels. Okay, I will give a height of 50 pixels and a background color. Okay, I will give any color. Okay, suppose I'll give a gray color. Okay, so we have given these styling properties to our div class. Okay, now save it and refresh it. See what is happening. Okay, see all extra elements. Okay, all extra text that is not inserted in this width and height is overflowing. Okay, so it kind of look ugly. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to apply over. Suppose we'll like increase the hair. Suppose we'll increase the width and suppose I will keep the height only as 50 pixels. Okay. Suppose okay. Now here what we'll do, we'll apply a overflow property. Okay. See here it is coming. The values are coming. Okay. We have read about auto. We have to read about hidden, scroll, visible. Okay. These properties are there. So now we'll use a hidden property. Okay, so we'll use a overflow hidden property here. Now when we refresh it, see all the overflowing elements are now hidden. Okay, so what it does, that the elements which overflow uh, it hides the contents that overflows. Okay, like these extra elements here has been overflown. Okay, the width and height can't adjust these texts, so now we have given the overflow hidden property, so it is hiding these contents. Suppose when we'll change it to visible. Okay, this is also the overflow property. Okay, when we change it to overflow visible, see now our content is visible. This is the default property. Okay, we don't have to give. This is the default property of overflow. Okay, suppose one is overflow scroll. Okay, when we apply this, you'll see our, suppose we'll increase some height, will increase to 100. Okay, see a scroll bar is coming. It adjusts the whole content inside this div. Okay, but a scroll bar is coming now. Okay, so it adjusts the whole content in this div only, in this width and height only. Okay, but overflow, we have done overflow to scroll, so a scroll bar is present here. Okay, you can scroll it and see it. Okay, then there is overflow auto. Okay, this will like adjust it according to the requirements. Okay, suppose we have given overflow auto. See here we aren't getting any extra contents in the here. Okay, we are getting all the contents in this particular width and height. Okay, so when we are giving overflow auto, it automatically adjusts the div and div to this particular width and height. Suppose we'll increase the width and height. Okay, here we'll give 300 pixel. See now when it is sufficient, when the space is sufficient to fill in the div, the scroll bar has gone now. Okay, this overflow auto property. But when we'll give a scroll bar, okay, notice the difference. Okay, see now there is scroll bar. Okay, but it is not scrolling because it's fitting inside this width and height. Okay, but a scroll bar is present here. Okay, so this is the difference between scroll and auto. Auto means it adjusts itself according to the requirements. Okay, so we have talked about float and overflow property. Okay, so float has three properties, like we can float the elements to left, right, or we can remove the float also. Then we can, when we use the float property, we can also clear the spaces when the elements are floating. It like we can clear the spaces, both left and right spaces, by using the clear property. Okay, then we can also use the overflow property to like discard the overflow elements with the help of, like, when we apply the overflow property to hidden, it will remove all the overflow elements, it will hide all the overflow elements. And when we apply the property as auto, it will automatically adjust itself according to the situation. We can also apply overflow to scroll for like scrolling that particular content. Okay, if you want the content to scroll down, okay, so we can apply the overflow property to scroll. Okay, like if here we can we have applied, suppose this, when we have like when the image is overflowing, suppose when the image is big and our content is smaller. Okay, so in order to adjust the image in that particular border, we can apply this overflow auto property, or we can apply the pseudo selector and apply these three properties. Content to blank will clear the both the left and right sides and will display it as table. Okay, it is applied onto the elements which are like which like here I'll show you the example. Okay, suppose I will comment out these. Suppose I have here these. Okay, we'll also comment out these. Comment out these. Okay, here we can. So suppose these stylings are added. Suppose there is a div and there is an image and there is a paragraph. Okay. Suppose we'll get. Suppose we'll replace this in. Okay. Like we can. Suppose we'll adjust it. So now when we apply these styling properties onto this particular div. Okay. So this how it looks like. Okay. It adjusts itself according to this. Okay. Suppose here we have floated left, we have floated the image to left. Suppose we'll comment out this, okay, and save it. See, here our image is overflowing. Okay, so in order to adjust this, we used overflow property to auto. Okay, so it adjusts the images. Okay, but when suppose when you are using a large where you are making a large website. Okay, uh, like you have 3 to 4 floated elements in a particular div. Okay, so you have to use this after pseudo selector. Okay, when the elements are floating, when 3 to 4 elements are floating, you can use this after pseudo selector and apply these properties. Here content is blank, will clear both the spaces and will display it as table. Okay, now we'll save it and we'll refresh it. Okay, see, now our content image is adjusted in this particular div. Okay, so we have covered the float property and overflow property. Okay, so next what? Yes, in the previous lecture when we have here like when we have studied, like see, you have applied a display inline here. Okay, here you have learned about display inline and display block. Okay, one more display property is there, that is display inline block. Okay, it acts as an inline and it acts as a block element. Suppose like I will show you. Okay, I will comment these out in order to work this. Always remember, this display inline does not work when there is a float property. Okay, so you have to remove this float property, then only it will work display inline. Okay, so we'll save this and we'll go to our page 14.html. Okay, see, now our li elements are inline. Okay, inline means we can't add width and height to this particular li elements. Okay, suppose add we'll add a padding. Okay, padding of 30 pixel. See, only left and right padding is provided but top and bottom padding is not provided. Okay, it will be clear when I will suppose give an width and height. 20 pixel and a height of 20 pixel. And this unit. Here you can see a yellow line is coming. Okay, so when we place the cursor here, see here it is written property is ignored due to the display. Okay, with the display inline, the width, height, margin top, margin bottom, and float properties have no effect. Okay, so when we apply the display inline property, these widths, height, float property, padding top, padding bottom, and properties have no effect. Okay, so it will these properties will not work. Okay, so uh, in order to use these properties, we change the display property to inline block. Okay, now we can use these properties. It will also act as inline element and it will also act as block element. Now we can add width and height. Suppose here we'll refresh it. See, now we can use our we'll give width of 100 pixel and a height of 50 pixel. Okay. See, now it is acting as inline block. Okay. Suppose we'll inspect it. Okay. We'll inspect it and we'll see. Suppose here you can see here we have given the width as 100 pixel li. This li we have given a width and height of 150 pixel. And this li we have given a width and height of 150 pixel. Okay. Suppose when we replace this with inline element, see our width and height property is neglected now. Okay, so we can't apply the width and height property in our inline block. So in order to use this width and height, we'll use this line block property. Okay, so there are three types of display properties. The one is inline block, and one is block. Block means this li elements will take the whole width of the particular element. Suppose we'll use this block. Okay, see here it is taking the whole width. Here I have restricted the width to some pixel, so it is ending here only. If we'll increase the width, it will go onto a whole screen. Okay, so this is the block level element. It will it extends the width to 100%. So there are three display properties. Okay, page. Okay, so we can use this display inline block, display inline or display block according to our requirements. Now we'll learn how to make a drop down box. Okay, suppose we'll make a new page. Suppose we'll put a title as drop down box. So what is a drop down box? Okay, so when you hover onto any link, okay, suppose you are hovering onto this link. If it has a subfolder or it has a sub file, okay, then a drop down box will be opened. Okay, like I will show you. Suppose in this here Here you can see this is a drop down box. Okay, so you can see here these are drop down box. Okay, so we'll study these, how to make these drop down boxes. Okay, suppose we'll take a div, and inside this I will create a span. Okay, we'll write something, suppose over upon me. Okay, okay, then we will create another div and we'll place something inside this. Suppose hello. Okay, so we'll save it. Okay, we'll go on to our page 16.html. Sorry, we'll go to our page 16.html. See, it is, we have to design it in order to make our drop down box. We have to design these elements. Okay, suppose here, suppose we'll give a class as drop down. Okay, and we'll give this class as drop down content. Always give names to the class, like so that others can understand. Okay, suppose here I'm giving the drop down class, suppose, so you can understand that these are the, here it is, these things are under drop down. Okay, when I'm giving the class name as drop down content, so you can understand this is the drop down content which will be present below the drop down. Okay, now we have to style it. Okay, suppose we'll use the style property and we will start with this drop down box. Okay, we'll style it, will like will give it the relative position, because the drop down will open relative to this position, this drop down position it will open. Okay, suppose here I have written hover upon me. Okay, so the content will open considering the this area, considering this relative position. Okay, so we'll give the position relative and we'll change the display to inline block. Okay, okay, now we'll design this drop down content. Okay, so now we'll target our drop down content. Okay, so here we have positioned it relative, so we are positioning this drop down as relative on a purpose, so that we can give this drop down position as absolute. Okay, so it will be positioned according to this relative position. Okay, so we have positioned it as absolute. We'll give a background color of like anything, like here I will give Bollywood. Then we can also give a width. We'll use here a minimum width as like suppose 80 pixel. We can also give a padding of 8 pixel. Okay, now we'll save it. Okay, we'll save it and we'll see. See, now we have done some styling. Okay, so what we want, that when we hover onto this hover upon me text, we should get a drop down box in which this fellow should be present. Okay, by default it should be hidden. Okay, so how can we do that? Okay, so we can add a display property to none. Okay, we can apply the display property as none. When we'll refresh it, see our display this span is gone now. Okay, so how can we repeat, how can we display it upon hovering? Okay, so you have to add a hover to this drop down content. Okay, to this drop down, we'll select the drop down and we'll apply a hover property. Okay, we'll apply the hover property to this drop down. Okay, suppose what we want to do. Okay, when we hover onto this drop down, we want our drop down content to be displayed. Okay, so I've applied the hover on drop down. So what we want our drop down content to be displayed. Here I have put the property as display none. Okay, so we want to display it. Okay, so how can we do that? We'll target like we'll target our drop down content here and we want to display it. So we'll give it a display property of block. Okay, so what we have done, when we are hovering onto this drop down, we are displaying our drop down content. Okay, we are displaying our drop down content. Suppose we'll save it and we'll refresh it. So when we are hovering this, when we are hovering onto this element, onto this span, our hello message shows up. Okay, we suppose we want to change the cursor. We also suppose will when it is hovering, we want to change the cursor to pointer. Okay, so we'll refresh it. So when we are pointing onto this, see, when we are pointing onto this hover upon me element, our cursor is changing to a pointer cursor. Okay, and our message is now being displayed as hello. Okay, we'll add some more styling to it. We can also add a box shadow onto this drop down content. Okay, we can add a box shadow 0 pixel 0 16 pixel and we can apply this box shadow. Okay, it is we have to reduce by we'll apply a 4 here, we'll apply a 4 here. Okay, we'll also reduce the opacity 0.2. We'll also nice, so we can also adjust the give it to also give a 2 pixel. Looking not looking nice. We can also apply this box shadow property, or we can also neglect it. Okay, this is also a property to add a shadow to a particular element. Okay, so in this way we can add a drop down. Okay, so what we have done, we have added a div. Okay, inside this we have added a span and a message, that drop down message, okay, in which we will hover on or click on, then our drop down content should be appeared, okay. Then we have created a div as drop down content, and then we have provided a message here, the drop down content, okay. Then we have positioned it to relative, the drop down div, we have positioned it to relative, and we have changed the display to inline block, okay. And we have positioned absolute to the drop down content, okay. And then we have applied like various properties. Here it is, this is important, display none, okay. If we will not apply this, by default our like drop down content will appear, okay. If we want to, like, when we click or when we hover onto that particular div, then only our display should be block, okay. So here our by default we have changed the display to none, and when we hover onto that particular drop down, our display is changing to block, and we have given the cursor to pointer, okay. So you can refresh it and you can see here we are getting upon hovering, okay. Okay. So okay, so in this way you can add a drop down, okay. So for today uh, this is enough, okay. You have to practice all these HTML tags and CSS properties, you have to practice, okay. So the next lecture will continue.